and I'm the president of the Pearson Center for Progressive Policy. Welcome to this session. Can you just let us know by chat, using the chat function, if you can hear us okay, or perhaps let us know if you can't hear us okay. And actually, Mark's got a question out there, so that'd be great. And Aaron says, all good to go. Okay, I'll take a couple of minutes and just talk about the Pearson Center. So the Pearson Center has been around for about 2.5, going on 3 years. We deal with a wide range of public policy issues. It's a progressive think tank. This is the third session that we're having that deals with what we broadly call leadership training. The first two were workshops that took place in Ottawa. And the last one that happened in April on this kind of topic, we felt was extremely successful. We couldn't, there wasn't enough room enough place in the room for everybody who wanted to attend. So we thought we'd really take it forward using webinars that more people can participate across the country. So this is the first one we're doing by webinar. And the idea is to really think about how people can improve their use of social media during campaigns. All campaigns use social media. They're all Facebooking, they're all tweeting, they're using other platforms. The question that a lot of people don't know is, are they doing the right thing for their campaign? So what we've done today is to bring together two experts who really know a lot about this field, and it's a chance for you to hear from them about the kind of things that are happening, the kinds of trends that are emerging, as well as the practices that are proving successful and more and less successful. It's 11:56. I could talk about all sorts, but I'll keep. What I'll do is just introduce our panelists, and then if it's a minute or two before noon, so be it. So first I want to introduce Mark Blevis. He's a digital public affairs strategist. We've got a bit more explanation about the kind of work he does. But I want to add that Mark is he's working in an innovative field, but he's also very innovative in how he does it. And he'll talk about some of the things he does in terms of looking at various people's use of social media. He has become increasingly the go-to person for the other media, the mainstream media or the old stream media, who want to know more about what's happening in social media. So Mark is often consulted by the Ottawa Citizen and other media, and has written some columns for them too about some of the people who are using social media effectively and more innovatively. So he's very kindly agreed to join us. I will stress that Mark is also strictly nonpartisan and provides these kind of services to, well, he does this, this is his company, does this for a living, and provides services and this kind of help to anybody who wants to know more about social media. Our second presenter is Britt Mockler, who's the social media lead for the Ottawa Centre Liberal campaign. She also works in the field in her daytime full-time role. She's a marketing specialist for Nonlinear Creations, which is a technology and business consulting firm based here in Ottawa. So she will be able to give us a better sense about what's working well on the ground and in the campaign that she's involved in. She's prepared to tell us quite a bit, although I expect that she may not want to share all the secrets, because we are in a competitive and a highly competitive campaign, and the campaign that she's involved in is certainly a very hot and competitive one too. So really, thank you, Brett, for sharing what you can today. So with that, I'll turn to Mark and take it away. Thanks, everybody. Please keep your I just see that Alex Collins says there's no sound right now. Okay. I think other people have sound. Alex, is it working for you?
Do we know the phone number offhand? Because I believe there's a phone number for people who might be having computer sound problems that they could phone into.
I don't have that.
Hi, I'm the admin here. If you want to call in, you just at the very top go to more and go to your audio options, and it should give options to call in.
Okay, and where do you click for that, Jay?
It's just above the video images of ourselves.
Okay.
There's some menu options, and one of them is more with 3 horizontal dots right above it.
Right. Okay.
All right, so hopefully Alex's sound issues get corrected quickly. All right, shall I get started then?
Yes, please.
All right, so hi, I'm Mark Blevis. Very nice to be speaking with everybody today, and thank you very much for having me as a part of the panel with Britt today. And I am going to look down. I've made a couple of notes for myself just as triggers, because there's so much going on with the election these days that sometimes I forget my name. So this presentation actually is adapted slightly from a presentation I did with the Pearson Center back in April at City Hall. And I like literary devices, so I use this panel presentation petition by the president of the Pearson Center for Progressive Policy as the subtitle. But really, you know, it's the essence of what I'm about to talk about is the more things change, the more they stay the same, really. I mean, we talk about social media as though it's some groundbreaking reality, and in many ways it is, and in many ways it really is more of the same. So let me start navigating through some of my slides here. So this should look somewhat familiar to people today. I don't know how often you're out at coffee shops or restaurants and you see people together and apart or seemingly apart. What's really interesting is a lot of people here, they might be reading the news or interacting with others. Who knows what's exactly going on? And it's so easy to criticize this and make fun of it. And I'm guilty of having done that, I suppose, a little bit in the past. I'm guilty of being one of the people in the picture. But it's not so different, really, when you think about it. This is the mobile phone is just a new form of technology. And the other thing I'd like to stress is the broadsheet that we see here, the newspaper, tends to be more intrusive in our field of view. So if you're out having coffee with somebody, you have a newspaper in front of you, you're isolating yourself more, it would seem, rather than having a small screen that you can just kind of look over. So that was my little way of easing us into a conversation about the 5 things that I'm going to present to you today. And there are many things, by the way, we can talk about. I just tried to whittle it down to some basics that will hopefully complement what Britt is going to be speaking about from the campaign point of view. So the first thing that's most important, and this is why I started off with that image of the 4 people with their iPhones or smartphones at a coffee table, is that mobile really is taking over our lives. And there's a great report that came out from ComScore. They put out an annual report called Digital Future in Focus, and it's one of the very few multinational organizations that looks at Canada, which is great. So there's really good data that comes out, and it's a nice complement to Edelman's Trust Barometer and a report that my company puts out I'll talk about later on. And one of the things they found is that in this year's report, the one that came out this past March, is that Canadians are using their mobile devices and tablets a lot more in the evening, and they tend to be using their computers during the day. That's not so surprising because we tend to be at the office or at a desk during the day, so we can use our computers. But what's really important to know is who your audience is and what device they're on, because the way you present information on a large screen is very different from the way you'll present information on a small screen. First of all, you can't cram as much text on a small screen. Landscape, beautiful images, for example, covering maybe mountain ranges and oceans. The details and the grandness of everything is going to be lost. So I often make fun of people who do talking head videos, but talking head videos work very well on mobile devices because of the size of the screen, the footprint of the screen. So that's one really important factor. Make sure anything you do is mobile friendly, and make sure that if you're targeting people in the evening, know that they're more likely to be on their phones or on their tablet computers. So it has to be mobile. The next piece is to be relatable. Now, I've picked only two of many tweets that can be picked from, and I picked them because these are two very prominent tweets that have happened in recent years. Of course, Barack Obama has nearly done his reign as President of the United States. It's a reign, really. But this is the photo that he tweeted when he was reelected back in 2012. It was the fastest and most popular tweet of the time. Of course, that was before the selfie that Ellen did at the Grammy Awards. Not the Grammy. Isn't it the Grammy Awards? Brent? It wasn't the Grammy Awards, the Oscars.
The Oscars, yeah.
Thank you. So, there's always new content that comes and trumps old content. But what you'll find is that when the content trumps something, we see ourselves in the image, right? We see ourselves in the content. So being relatable is really important. So when you look at this image of Barack Obama embracing Michelle Obama, and clearly it's a staged photo, and obviously they didn't have this outdoor image of an embrace taken just moments before he would have accepted his his re-election as president. But they've obviously staged this, but they knew that this was going to be a powerful message in support of 4 more years. 4 more years is exciting enough for people who support Barack Obama, but seeing people embrace, that's what people were feeling. They were so excited. They wanted to hug, at least the supporters, I assume, wanted to hug their partner, their friend, their campaign volunteer friends, whoever. But that was a powerful moment. So you want to make sure that your content is relatable. And the same as with this cheeky tweet that I put up there from Canada at NATO when they were taking shots at Russia for its invasion of the Ukraine. For the people who support Canada's view and support the Ukraine, this was a very powerful moment, a great way to deliver a message. And it was funny, which is why you see here it's being retweeted, at least when I took this picture back in April, 42,000 times. Now, tweets have a half-life. They go crazy in a few days at most, and then it just kind of peters out. So I can't imagine it's gone. There are many more favorites and retweets since then, but this is certainly an example of content that is relatable. The next thing you want to be is remarkable. Now, there's many examples I can use of being remarkable in online content. I picked a blog example here because people often overlook the value of blogs. Never underestimate the importance of having a good blog as part of your campaign strategy. This is a campaign that the Center for Disease Control did in the United States when various pandemics were going out with avian flu and bovine flu a few years ago. The CDC really felt that they weren't reaching the public, and the public weren't aware of the resources that were available from the CDC. So they created a blog post to help people prepare for the zombie apocalypse. I kid you not, there are now academic papers on the impact of this campaign. It was that successful. It made international headline news that night. It really brought attention to the CDC's website and their blog, and people suddenly were aware of how to prepare for pandemics, how to prepare for various other emergencies. So that's what being remarkable can do. It not only becomes shareable content, but it's content that resonates with people. They will actually read it. The blog post about the zombie apocalypse was peppered with links to other resources within the CDC. So not only did the CDC become more well known, but the links to resources and the availability of other resources became well known. All right. Be visible. Sorry, I'm on the wrong page here. I'm going to talk about various ways to be visible, but the benefits of being visible is that people will come to you. So in this particular case, this is an example of Mark Messier, who at one time was the public information officer for the Ottawa Fire Department. And he established credibility and visibility very early on in his Twitter activity, became something of a celebrity here in Ottawa, such that after he was transitioned out into his new role as fire prevention officer, people were still contacting him and still contact him with questions about fire safety, fire prevention, etc. And the media still come to him, even though he's not in that role anymore. That's how well established he was. So a few weeks after he transitioned into the fire prevention officer role, he was contacted by Victoria, you see on the right-hand side, with a photograph of a stairwell in her building, asking if it was okay for the stairwell door to be open. She chose to tweet to him to ask the question rather than call the telephone number at the fire department to ask them or send an email. This is how important social media has become. People will now go to social media first to ask questions and to get clarification rather than go through traditional channels, which involve automated phone attendance and 24-hour or 48-hour business day turnaround times. So this is an important thing, relationship to establish with your following. Now, being visible is not just about your online activities in isolation, like on Twitter, but having a good ecosystem. There's a series that I've done and I haven't done it in a while, partly because of the recess with government, partly also because of being busy. But I do this digital makeover series where I pick MPs and I cycle through the various parties. And I'll pick an MP and I look at what I call their digital ecosystem and how well they're doing online. So this is Ted Hsu, who's not running in this particular election. He served one term for Kingston, the Islands, for the Liberal Party in the session of Parliament that just ended. And this is the digital ecosystem evaluation that I did for him. You can actually go to my blog, markblevis.com, and you can read how fulsome my analysis is. But this is a pictorial representation of what he does. With his website at the center of his ecosystem, he has YouTube, he has Flickr, he has Twitter, he has Facebook. And I look at all the different ways these different properties are connected and how he's using them effectively or ineffectively. Does he cover the bases? Does he do extras? So this is kind of like an audit. Understanding how all the pieces fit together and knowing that your website is at the center of your ecosystem. And I hope Britt will talk a bit more about that. So I'm not going to dwell on this, but notice that all these different pieces contribute to the visibility. Now, it's not just about which properties you maintain, but which properties other people maintain that establish your visibility. Remember these things? Lawn signs, they still exist. I still see them going, when I walk to and from work, I still see them walking around my neighborhood. They're less prominent now than they were when I was growing up in the 80s. And there is an analogous version of these online that shan't be overlooked. Shan't. It's the word of the day. I call them digital lawn signs. And I actually I'm doing these daily periscopes on how to do effective digital campaigning. And I talked about this yesterday. Basically, what you want to do is you want to create images that people can use as their profile photos, their cover photos, imagery on their own websites, on their social media properties that say, hey, I'm supporting, and I'll pick, who I'll pick here. I'll pick Jody Minnick because I don't want to get into picking favorites in this election. But Jody Minnick ran for city council here in Ottawa in the last municipal election and won. And so he had these avatars, these badges and images with a yellow background saying, I support Jody Minnick, and various other forms of messaging on these yellow backgrounds so that people would then make them their profile photos or their cover photos so that when people tweeted, when people put up Facebook updates, YouTube videos, whatever it was, every time they put up their own interactions online, that image went along with their post. So it wasn't just that Jody's properties were being promoted, but other people's properties were promoting Jody just by the very fact that he'd made this digital lawn sign available. Now, it's not just enough to make these images available. You have to help people help you. So show them how to change their profile photo, their cover photo. Provide bullet list instructions on your website, maybe a video. Tell people this is how you can download this image for Twitter and how you can make it your profile photo. And then say when, after the campaign is done, you can remind them that, thanks for your support. Don't forget to put your own photo back up. How impactful are these digital lawn signs? Well, this is a great example. This was a campaign that took place during Proposition 8 in California a couple of years ago. They created this equal sign. This was the organization's name escapes me at the moment. Britt might know. But they created this campaign to promote equality and equal, and same-sex marriage especially. And everybody took this logo, which was an equal sign against a red background, and made it their own. Budweiser did it. George Takei did his own version with the Star Trek image. My wife took our glasses, my glasses and her glasses, that's in the image on the lower right-hand corner, and made a version for her profile to show equality. You can see how everybody made it their own. So it wasn't just, we were talking about being relatable and being remarkable. People saw themselves in these images and made their own versions. That's even more powerful than you putting out your own content. And be efficient. So I'm not going to dwell on this too much, but this is from a report that my company put out. I was talking about ComScore earlier. There's all sorts of different reports that come out that provide data that will help you understand the demographics across all social media platforms, how people are using it, why they're using it, are they engaged politically, do they only promote their own content or other people's content, etc. So there's lots of charts and graphs and data to go through. There's an ecosystem that shows the importance of establishing yourself as credible online and building those media relationships, whether directly or indirectly through your own social media communities, so that your point of view, if you're a campaign team or a candidate, that your information is getting to the right sources and getting to other voters who aren't necessarily online. And the data really shows that information is funneling from social media to the mainstream media, to the average Canadian. And the average Canadians don't realize they're getting the source of their information really is social media. So to recap, be mobile, be relatable, be remarkable, be visible, and be efficient. Thank you very much. And I will now defer to Andrew and Britt to continue.
Wonderful. Can you hear me? Hi. Wonderful, Mark. Thank you very much. Just one quick question, just to clarify something, and that's, and I'll put up a website here, a URL, just on the question of how to make content that is mobile friendly in terms of frame and size. Have you got any suggestions on that?
First of all, I've created a link on my site, markblevis.com/dimensions, which will take you to a Google search result. And there's all sorts of sites there, including Sprout Social, who make available the latest and greatest dimensions for all social media property imagery. So whether it's your profile photo, your cover photo for Facebook or Twitter or YouTube, whatever the case may be. A lot of sites also offer a lot of great advice on how to create imagery that works. What I'll say is think about scale. Think about when you're on Twitter, for example, and you're watching tweets go by, the images scale down very small. So you want to make sure that whatever image you create scales down nicely. So if it's a picture of a person's face or if it's text, there's not too much text. You don't want to create a whole lot of clutter. You want it to be clean and high contrast, good contrast. And readable at various sizes. Now, obviously, if it's too small, you can't expect to read it, but keeping it clean, keeping it concise, and keeping it visual is really important. And I'm sure Britt has some examples of how they're using it with their campaign too.
Okay, thanks very much. And we'll go to Britt. You've got a presentation here entitled 5 Social Media Tips from the Campaign Trail. Go ahead, Britt.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andrew. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you, Mark, for that great presentation. So today I am here directly from the campaign trail. As Andrew said previously, I am working with Catherine McKenna, who is currently running in Ottawa Center. So also, as Andrew said, most of the tips I will be giving you today are based on our own experience, but don't have a ton of Catherine McKenna content, just because I wanted to make sure this was as nonpartisan as possible, and that we weren't giving away too many tips, too many tricks of the trade. Okay, so hello. Let me introduce myself. So as I said, working with Catherine McKenna, I am a marketing specialist at Nonlinear Creations, which has an office here in Ottawa. We have an office in Toronto and also a big office in Brazil. And no, I have never been to visit, unfortunately. So I have extensive social media experience, both professionally and also in the volunteer sphere. So right now I am volunteering for Catherine, but in my daily work at Nonlinear, I'm doing a lot of social media and a lot of promoted stuff, which I will present to you in a few minutes. Okay, so 5 tips. Number 1, consistency is key. So what do I mean by that? As you probably know, because many of you are probably managing campaign social media channels now, there are a ton of channels and there's only so much time. So social media is an incredibly important part of a political campaign these days, but so is putting up signs, and so is a website, and so is canvassing. So we all know that there's only 24 hours in a day, and trying to succeed on all of those levels can be difficult. So my first tip is that you need to pick your channels, and you need to pick the channels that you are going to be able to constantly update and put out information on. So for example, we have a pretty strong social media team with Catherine. So we are currently on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. That's a lot. And so maybe your campaign is not set up for that. If you can only commit to constantly updating Facebook, only do Facebook. There's nothing worse than going to a page that hasn't been updated in 3 weeks. And honestly, the way this campaign is working and the way that social media works these days, even if you haven't updated it in 5 days, it's not looked upon well. So you want to make sure that you can commit to what you're putting out there. So that goes into my point there about planning a strategy. So know who is going to be doing what and which channels it's going to be on. The next thing you want to do is, like I said, post your heart out. People want to know. They are following you or they're liking your page because they want to know what's going on with your campaign. So, talk about the volunteer who brought in home-picked lettuce, which is something that happened to our account. We put that right up on Facebook. There's a lovely older gentleman who picked this lettuce himself and brought it in for our volunteers. So, that is interesting content that people find cool and different, and it makes them feel like they're really inside the campaign with you. And then also your candidate. I assume that many of you are working specifically on candidate social media channels. So oftentimes your candidate will have an issue that they really want to focus on. Make sure to obviously talk about or post on your candidate talking about the issue, but also if there's an Ottawa Citizen article or one of the other national papers covers something about affordable housing or the Ottawa River, for example, you want to make sure that your followers are getting the most up-to-date information on the topics that are of interest to you. Just a heads up, I have a tendency to rant and talk a bit fast. So if anyone is finding that, just let me know. Just send me a little ping message there at the bottom and I will attempt to slow down. I get very excited about this stuff. Number 2, amplify your message with advertising. This one can be a little overwhelming by time. So if you're just starting to get into social media, you're just posting on Facebook and you're just posting on Twitter for, kind of your first time, the idea of advertising, thank you, Alex. The idea of advertising can be overwhelming. Start small. So as I said, as with our social media channels, Catherine has a great team. And so we are currently running Facebook ads, Twitter ads, Google AdWords, and YouTube ad roll, which if you are in Ottawa Centre, you may have seen. We have targeted to those in Ottawa Centre. So like I said, that's a lot. You can see here, this is one of our Google AdWords campaigns, which are pushing people to our website. So back to what Mark said about your website being a prime channel for you. As much as possible, you do want people on your website. That's where all your content is. That's where all your calls to action about volunteering or donating are. So if you can find a way to push people to your website, awesome, you're ahead of the game. The other thing is that you're putting out all of this content. You want people to see it. So when you're starting out, maybe you have 15 or 50 or 100 likes on your Facebook page, and it's a bit disappointing because you're putting all this effort in, you're posting your heart out, and no one's seeing it. That is a perfect opportunity to head on to the Facebook Adverts Manager and run an ad. They have lots of different types of ads you can run. I would suggest, for the most part, most of these campaigns, you want to do page promotion. So you want to increase your likes. Obviously, the more likes you have, the more timelines you show up in, and the more people are getting your message. And Facebook, you can do it cheaply. Spend $15 a day and ask people to like your page, you will be shocked at how great it can be. And there's a ton of targeting options within all of these managers. So, we target stuff to Ottawa Center. We want people in Ottawa Center to be finding out who Catherine is and seeing our messages. Also, if you have a more general message, you could just target to Ottawa generally, or Winnipeg and Toronto, I believe, are also people that are on the call. So depending on your location, you might want to target differently. And also, if you have any questions about any of these things, my email address is on the at the end of the presentation, so we can chat. Number 3, an image is worth 1,000 words. We've all heard this many times before. Social media kind of embodies that idea. So my suggestion to you is that you find an honorary campaign photographer. Maybe you have your own photographer already for the campaign. If so, good job. But we all have people on our campaigns who are just snapping photos all the time. So if you name that person and they are responsible for making sure that everywhere your candidate is, we have a photo of it, you can use that content. I also say videographer as well. Video content has blown up over the past couple of years. People love it. Whether you have a professional video, which is not always plausible, or a 30-second iPhone video, people adore them. So if you can find someone who's got a little video camera to fly along with you, do that. Keep them at the side of your candidate at all times, and you will be a step above of anyone else, because no one wants to just see walls of text. People want to see your campaign. They want to see the momentum. They want to feel like they're part of it. Imagery is a really big part of that. Number 4, join the conversation. So, and I have seen a few examples of candidates who are wonderful candidates, but their social media presence tends to be a little one-sided. Engagement is the name of the game when it comes to social media. So there's a ton of chatter out there. It's easy to just post about the stuff you're doing, but ideally people are going to be responding, and you need to make an effort as a social media campaign person to be responding to that content. Oftentimes you will see, 4 or 5 responses to something. Sometimes they're trolls or people who are just out to get you, which happens, don't get me wrong, and it can cause you to be a bit cynical about it. But a lot of people are coming to social media because they're looking for information. They want to know who your candidate is so that they can make up their decision on voting day. So do your best to reply in a timely manner. Also, as you'll see on this slide here, I talk about Twitter and Facebook specifically. Monitor conversations. So Hootsuite, which is a Canadian product out of Vancouver, is fantastic. They have a free version which works amazingly well. You just put in your information, create an account, and you can monitor things like your candidate's Twitter feed quite easily, but also you can put in search terms. So if someone is tweeting about your candidate but not using your Twitter handle, you'll be able to see it. You'll know what's being said about them. Same thing goes for your riding. So you want to make sure that you're looking to see what's happening in the riding, what people are tweeting about, what their issues and concerns are, and maybe an issue that they find quite important to them, to keep up to date on what people are saying. And then on Facebook, engagement as well. You want to watch for comments on posts and videos and photos, and you want to respond. So we, even ourselves, have had difficult conversations on Facebook, for example, and it's tough sometimes. Oftentimes you will see them, and sometimes it is legitimate trolls, people who are just looking to stir things up. But a lot of people have difficult questions, and they really are curious to hear your candidate's answer. So you need to make a point of, if it's not the candidate themselves doing it, of you talking to them, figuring out what kind of response that they want to put out there, and actually responding. We had a question recently about the Syrian refugee crisis. that was quite detailed, quite long, and difficult to answer. It's a tough thing, you know. And so we talked about it, and we came up with a response. And the person was so incredibly grateful that we would go out of our way to respond, as opposed to just ignore, which a lot of people do. So engagement, key to a successful social media presence for any candidate. Number 5, the 5th takeaway, think outside the box. People want to get to know your candidate and your team. So as much as it's nice to see, come here and canvas, come here and donate, come here and attend our event, we want to get to know what you're really like, or what your candidate's like, and what your team is like. So as I was saying before, with images, that really helps, but also throw in some personality. So maybe you want to highlight one of your amazing volunteers. Maybe there are some really cool doormats that you see while you were canvassing, or cool mailboxes, which we have seen while I was canvassing. And you know, snap a picture of that, throw it up on your Facebook page and your Twitter page, and say, look guys, this is what it was like out on the campaign trail today. People want to feel involved. So make sure you add something unique to your social media presence. So to recap, consistency is key. Don't choose a channel if you're not going to update it. Amplify with advertising. Even if it's $15 a day, start and get your message out there. An image is worth 1,000 words. Grab a photographer and keep them beside your candidate at all times, and then post that stuff everywhere. Join the conversation. You must engage. And finally, think outside the box. Try and add a little personality. Thank you so much. As I said, you can find me on Twitter, or you could email me as well.
Okay, that's wonderful, Brett and Mark. Thank you very much. So what I'll do, we've got a good half hour or so. If people want to send in questions, please use your chat function, and we'll take questions as they come in. So, and as we're waiting for that, let me start with one question. And since I've got a microphone, hey, I get to go first. What are your thoughts about the comments in newspapers and television and radio stations? You know, the comment sections where people get in there and they're having all sorts of conversations. Is that worth it, or is that just a lot of hot air, you know, being let off there? There was a time I made a point of, every day I made a point of posting one comment in one medium somewhere. And I was doing this for a few weeks, and I thought, I wonder if anybody reads any of this. What are your thoughts?
You first, Britt.
What are my thoughts? If you are on Twitter a lot, you will see there's a lot of funny content on internet comments. They are a minefield, and I think that generally speaking, you should stick to the news part of the article. Mark, would you agree?
I generally agree with Britt. There is value to be gained from the comments section of news articles. And for some of my clients that I've done reputation management stuff for, we've actually relied heavily on what was being put into the comments section. Actually, I know this is going to sound like a shameless plug for my book, but I'm going to do it anyways. In the book I co-authored with Todd Maff, and we look at 5 personalities of people who contribute into the comment section of a newspaper or any site, really. And we highlight, you know, the authoritative, credible person versus the emotionally charged person, etc. And we help identify ways to use the information that's gained from the comment section. It descends very quickly into just the bazaar, I'll call it. But there is value in getting some of the information in there from the comment section. The big problem, of course, is that letters to the editor and comments on the newspaper have historically been vetted by the editors, right? So you get somebody writes in a letter. This is from M. Blevis or Mark Blevis or Mark B or whatever from Ottawa. So there's a name attached to it. And they used to, I think they preferred people to provide their last name, so it was credible. Online, of course, you can be, I don't know, Red Bird Lover 78, and then, you know, so you're completely anonymous. I know that this is the Pearson Center, this is a liberal crowd. I know a lot of people who were upset with what Dean Del Mastro said about anonymous commenting on newspapers, but I know a lot of people who are on the right, the center and the left side of the political spectrum, who generally agreed with what he had to say. They weren't enthused with the way he said it, but his point was very well taken, which is the anonymity that's afforded to people online means that they feel that they can just spray any opinion anywhere. And that's really what they're doing. They're just spraying opinion.
Okay, thanks both. Here's a question from Ron in Winnipeg. Please provide demographics on Twitter versus Facebook versus websites versus Reddit. Your thoughts on that?
I'm gonna let Mark answer this one. I feel like he is a data guy who has a lot of this information. I bet he has a link right now.
Well, I'll tell you. So I'm gonna defer to something that we've prepared ourselves, and we're going to be doing a new version of it this fall, and that's our Matters of Opinion report. This is a report that we've put out 2 years in a row in partnership with Abacus Data, and you've probably heard Abacus Data and David Coletto's names a lot during this election, because David and his team have just been all over this federal election, providing updates almost on a daily basis, not only just on public opinion, but measuring neat ways of determining how people prefer, say, Tom Mulcair or over Stephen Harper, by asking interesting questions. So, you know, would you trust him with your child? Would you trust him with your money? Would you, so looking at different ways of measuring what it all means. So a lot of people will say that Twitter is a young person's game. And if you consider me a young person, then yes, it is a young person's game. A lot of people who are on Twitter who are using it the most, especially in the political sense, are people who are 30 and up. So there's a lot of people just think, oh, that's just child's play. And really it's not. And there's over 2 million tweets, election-related tweets, that have been issued since August 2nd. So there's a lot of activity going on. And yes, a lot of it is noise, and more of it is actual signal. So there's a lot to be gained from Twitter. I don't have my Matters of Opinion report in front of me, but if you go to mattersofopinion.ca, and maybe Andrew, you can throw that link up, or Jay, if you can take that link in really quickly, you can go to that site, and you can, all you have to do is just provide your email address and name. We haven't spammed anybody, but we just wanted to make sure that we knew who was getting the report. So you can download a free copy of the report. It's a PDF. It was issued in November of last year. So the data in there may seem dated, but it's still fairly accurate. And we will be issuing an update after this current election, because we're going to use some of the election data to provide this year's analysis. Facebook is kind of all over the place, but it is skewing a little bit older. And especially, grandparents love to stay on top of what's going on with their kids and their grandkids and stuff like that. Reddit is geek culture. So most of the people who participate in Reddit are the really geeky people who are willing to have a cool service with a really crappy interface. The rest of us have kind of moved on beyond that. We like our iPhone screens and our Samsung screens, which make Reddit just seem like the orange shag carpet and wood paneling in your 1970s basement at this point. But there are people who use Reddit, really love it, and they buzz around that interface like nobody's business. And websites are also all over the place. Websites, maybe, a lot of people are really putting a lot of stock into Facebook, and there is a lot of merit to having a good, solid Facebook presence and LinkedIn presence and all these different other presences. I'm going to go back to something that I brought up and Britt also brought up, which is the importance of your website. Your website is the one thing you control and own. So you control how the information is organized, displayed, presented, the color it's in, the size of the font, where the eyes go. And that's really important. That's in my digital makeovers, I often talk about having a website that makes it easy for your eyes to figure out where they're supposed to look. If there's too much going on, they don't land anywhere and they'll leave. So having a good website, not only well presented, but that you own the content, is really important, because Facebook can one day decide how they're going to change the way information is presented, or somebody might have an issue with your opinion and might delete your content. They'll file a complaint and your content will be deleted. Or maybe they'll change the way the information is displayed, and suddenly something that was really important to you and placed nicely isn't there anymore. It's really great to have these online presences, have the social media outposts, as I call them, but point everybody back to your website and keep the most important stuff there and present it the way that you want people to receive it, and that people can understand receiving it as well.
I'm just going to make one comment, if that's okay, Andrew, on the website thing. Now, I'm not certain. I was actually just, as you were talking, Mark, I was just trying to do a little research. Like, for example, the Liberal websites, so the Liberal campaign or Liberal candidates have template websites in WordPress. I believe that some of the others might as well. So that is especially important if you are trying to use your website as a really good source of information. So if it's going to look like many other candidate websites, make sure that you're standing out. Like, make sure that you have a video or you have specifically written content that is about your candidate and more interesting than the general templated stuff. Because, it's hard to stand out from the crowd when you have that barrier. It's nice because everything is done for you. It looks great. But a lot of them will look the same. So it's a good thing to take a little look, see what other people are doing, and then, like I said, try and think outside the box to set yourself apart.
That's actually one of the things that was really interesting about Ted Shu's online presence, is that he didn't use the Liberal template. So when you went to his website, it popped out. And I think that, that's a really good point that Britt raises, that if you're provided with the infrastructure for your campaign, it's great because it's ready to go and doesn't cost very much. It's fabulous. It's like plug and play. But if you don't make yourself stand out, then it's another, also, I'll use a Liberal example. It's just another Liberal website. And it's another candidate, and you don't really, bless you, by the way, you don't really see the, you have to make it so that you jump out on your own page.
Yeah. Okay. Before we go to the next question, I want to do one quick commercial, and that's for the Pearson Center. I want to remind you to go to our site during or after preferably after this session. There's a donate page. Please think about that. But otherwise, just visit us. Look at two things. One is the Progressive platform, which is developing. There are about 15 papers there from a number of different people on a wide range of issues, everything from the environment to the economy, childcare, and international affairs. The other thing, just to go back to the point that one of you made, the Pearson Center, some of the people involved, I think this goes back to one of the points Britt was making. Some of the key people involved are Lloyd Axworthy, who's a past Minister of Foreign Affairs and a past president of the University of Winnipeg, Karen Mock, who is a human rights specialist in Toronto, and Mika Buckley-Pearson, who is a master's student at the University of Toronto and also the great-granddaughter of Lester B. Pearson. She's a great participant, and even though she's a great-granddaughter, we actually think of her as a great-granddaughter of Lester B. Pearson. Anyhow, so do think about donating to us and participating, and send us your thoughts that can be included in the Progressive platform. We'll go to Joanne Filion from Ottawa. What are the panelists' views on the right amount of postings? That's one question. And the second, how do they behave with trolls?
I can take this one first, Mark, if you'd like.
Sure.
Okay. So the amount of posting is up to you, but in my opinion, I like the idea of one general post and one action post on Facebook, for example. So, one post that's about signing up for a Canvas or signing up for a phone bank and or donating. And then one post that is, looking at what your candidate was doing over the weekend, or pictures from the canvases for the past couple of days, or something about their issues, that they're like their pet issues. And then also sharing any, if many of you are working on candidate profiles, party issues, they like you to try and share some of their content. So, maybe you have a post or two as well that is shared content as opposed to your own content. That's my personal view. I don't like to overtake people's news feeds, because then they will unlike you. They will stop following your page. So you want to make sure that they're informed, but not over-informed. Twitter, on the other hand, depending on what you're doing. So if you're having some kind of an event and you have the resources, something like a live tweet, a live Twitter kind of showcasing the event that you're at is a nice touch, which means more like 10 or 15 tweets usually. Otherwise, I like to do make sure there's 3 or 4 going out a day, because as Mark was saying, Twitter has a shorter lifespan. So you want to make sure that content is more continuously showing up in a feed, whereas Facebook's is you want to steer a bit clear of overpopulating your pages.
That's actually, I agree with Britt. I've been doing this daily Periscope series on just called Digital Campaigning Done Right. It was named by one of my viewers. And today's actually was one of 3 points that I brought up was frequency. So if you go to Periscope, if you're on Periscope, if you go to Periscope, you can watch that video, and I've been turning them into podcasts as well. The line I used at the beginning was as often as possible, yet not more than necessary.
Yeah.
And I really think that speaks to the platform, as Britt identified. Twitter, I was saying, starting probably about 3 to 5 posts a day, spread them out over the course of the day, and try to make a mix of not just original content, but retweeting other people's content, responding to posts that other people put up. So if they ask a question or make a comment, respond to them. Make it look like you're not just standing on a soapbox talking at people. Make it look like you're part of the crowd talking with people. So I agree, Facebook, a couple posts a day, at most, maybe 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. Give people a chance to get in on the conversation, because Facebook tends to be a little bit more threaded in conversation. So people will jump in and they can add their comments. If you ask questions or give people a call to action, that always helps generate conversation as well. Videos, I would try to do 1 a week, but don't rush out and do one just for the sake of doing one. Have a purpose for it, whether you're showing people out on the campaign trail. Maybe there's an event that you're at. Maybe it's a policy announcement. Show profile of a volunteer or a resident of the riding. All these different ideas and more would make great videos. And I saw there was also a question about Instagram. And so Instagram is also a great platform. Flickr is still relevant, though it tends to be a little bit more for the photo junkies as opposed to just the photo files, I'll call them. And Instagram's made news because Stephen Harper has been using sponsored Instagram posts, which people have been tearing shreds from, tearing into shreds, I guess. They've been lots of nasty comments, and then it made news again because the Conservative campaign team was deleting the negative comments, and it was pretty much all negative comments, so there was almost nothing left. But Instagram is really good because it will take some of the pressure off of Facebook for imagery. So you can go on Instagram and put up a couple of photos of an event that you're at. You can use Twitter for that as well. You don't want to flood people with too much content because, as Britt says, they'll just walk away.
Do either of you have comments on trolls? There's a couple of questions.
Oh, that's right. Do you want to start off with that one?
Yeah. So as I was saying when I did my presentation, so you have to be able to identify the difference between a troll and someone who is very passionate about an issue that they just, sometimes you don't want to give an answer, but sometimes you need to. Like I was saying with the Syrian refugee crisis, like this comment that the person left, they were obviously quite passionate about it. And when you looked at it, you immediately thought, there's no way that is like valuable questioning. But so you need to have that identifier. I also highly suggest that for your Facebook page, Twitter, it's harder because your bio is very short, but you can do in your about section on your Facebook page, you can make a note saying that anything that is offensive or derogatory in any sense will be removed. Because that it does happen. Like I said, it's happened to us before. It's kind of the name of the game when it comes to this sort of thing. So my biggest tip is to be able to identify the difference. If it is a troll, then block them from the page, block them from your Twitter account. And also, it's okay if you just don't want to, if you just don't respond to that kind of content. Like maybe you don't want to block them because it seems a bit aggressive. I'm not sure. If you follow a lot of Twitter, you will see people saying, oh, so-and-so blocked me, so I'm not allowed to see so-and-so's tweets anymore. So sometimes you just want to let it go. Don't respond, but also, you don't want to antagonize them either.
Further to your suggestion about the About page, having a good commenting policy, and I would recommend even posting one up on the website so that it becomes a catch-all for all of your properties, is identify under what conditions content will be deleted and people will be banned from the page. But make sure that you also make it a safe place for people to have all sorts of opinions, where people can come and disagree and discuss and debate, provided it's done respectfully. So many policies are really done from the negative point of view. That is, you will be banned if. Rather than that, say, everybody here is welcome. We want to have a fulsome conversation. The best way for me to serve you as your member of parliament is to understand all the issues. So I'm not going to run away from anything that seems challenging. However, you need to express it respectfully. You need to respect all the people here on this page. And if you don't, then we'll remove your content. Tip, always screen capture anything you delete before you delete it, so that if it becomes a bone of contention, you have a record of what it is that you removed. Trolls, the biggest advice I can give you is don't feed them.
Okay, we're about 10 minutes. We've got about 10 minutes more. Has anybody got more questions? Otherwise, I have one, and I'll pose that for now. The other thing I'll just say to folks on the line, if you've got any other comments you'd like to make, any experiences you'd like to share, please do so. Alex, you ran for a nomination recently. If there's anything you'd like to share in terms of your experience from a social media perspective, we'd be interested to hear that. My question to the two panelists, are you noticing anything new in this campaign as opposed to previous campaigns in terms of social media? Are there any new phenomena, new platforms that are taking off more than the others?
Britt, you start again.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Well, I will use Mark as an example. Periscope, I would find like that's a trend that some people are using on some campaigns. We, as the Catherine's campaign, we do have a Periscope account. We've only used it a couple of times now. It's one that we're still kind of getting used to. I think most people are still kind of getting used to the idea of Periscope. So in case you don't know what Periscope is, it's a live streaming app that, I mean, like Mark was saying, that he keeps his and puts them up as podcasts. But the actual video live streaming is not recorded, and you can only watch it while it's live. So
actually, they've changed that. You can they actually have replay capabilities now. Yeah, this is fairly new.
See, these things are changing all the time, so it's good to stay on top of them. And trend-wise, just social media-wise in the campaign, I would say I know a lot of people said that 2011 was the social media campaign. And I know a lot, like coming up to the election, a lot of people said, let's not call this one that. It's a whole different thing. But if you've been following the news, it appears that 2015 might be the social media downfall campaign. A lot of people are having trouble with their social media presence, stuff they've tweeted in the past, that sort of thing. So I think that's it. I would call it a trend, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that I think a lot more people this time figured out that they needed to have their online community built before they needed it. It's not true in all cases, but certainly in 2011, people really treated social media, whether it was Twitter, Facebook, even websites for that matter, as kind of, oh yeah, and we'll do this. Whereas nowadays, for this election, people have really realized the importance of having that everything integrated and interconnected. So that protein space and digital space converge, and so they're extensions of each other. It's not just that you have a door knock and then you send people to your social media page. You have a social media page and then you show up at people's door. So there's this nice little what's a good way to put it? I don't want to use the word synergy because I can't stand that word, but I think that's a word people understand. but there's this nice little relationship between what you do with your mobile device and your computer and what you're doing in live interactions with people. By the way, I believe that this is all real world now. It's not just like digital world and real world. Everything really is interconnected. And the mobile phones that we carry around allow us to maintain that connection and stay connected with people, stay on top of issues, and build on the relationships, even when we can't be in the same room as them. Thinking about that image of the 4 people at that table together at the beginning of my presentation.
Right. Okay, well, that covers our questions. I note a lot of people thanking you for your presentations. Mark and Britt, thank you very much. There's a lot of information that we've had to take in. This presentation, fortunately, will live on forever. It will be posted on our website. Maybe we'll look at it, take a look at it at the next election 4 years from now, and see how much is still relevant or how the world has
Hopefully,
changed.
we haven't said anything that will take us out of being candidates in the future, if that ever happens.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, and the last point: if you are a candidate, what do you need to do with your past Twitter and Facebook accounts?
Britt, I'll let you go first again.
Clean them up. So if you are going to run, make a point of, a year beforehand, go through your Twitter timeline, go through your Facebook. If there's so much that you can't delete it, maybe it's not a good idea to run.
Or start another account.
Or start another account and block the other one. Lock it so no one else can see it.
Sorry, go ahead, Andrew.
Can you just delete everything from, say, July 1st and before?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think you have to pick them off one at a time.
Yeah, you have to pick them off one by one. Yeah.
Certainly, if you are thinking about running and you do have some posts from long ago that you don't want people to see, go and delete them before you make your announcement or before you fully decide. Because as you find in this election, either A, people are forgetting to actually go through their history to delete the content, or B, you're not able to get it deleted quickly enough, and people will go and screen capture stuff. So get rid of that stuff before people screen capture. And remember this, by the way, it's not social media that gets people in trouble; it's people who get people in trouble. The example I used to use is his last name escapes me right now. The NDP Pat Martin. Twitter did not cause him to go on a profanity laced tirade. It was he who went on the profanity laced tirade. He would have done it in a coffee shop with the right person if he had been in a coffee shop with the right person. Instead, he did it on Twitter because he was probably alone and he was angry. So check yourself before you actually go off online on any subject, because it can come back to haunt you. And think of it in terms of, if I'm not prepared to say it in front, on television or in front of a room of other people, then maybe it's not worth saying. Having said that, there's a couple of things I'll just add to the wrinkle of this. One is, no matter where you say it, people can screen capture it and share it. So it doesn't matter if you've done it on Twitter or an email, which is presumably a private communication, it can come back to haunt you. And the other thing is, I was just reading an article today about teachers and some of the challenges they face with social media. And the issue is, even if they have private social media communities, some of them will put photos up of being at a bar or whatever, having a beer. And people are getting testy with this, and they're sending these photos to principals. Sometimes even from private accounts, they'll have managed to get a copy of this image, and they'll go to principals saying, this is what they're putting up online. Well, I think there's also, not to say that this is the case in the current election, but I'm sure this is going to come up at some point. There are going to be people who are going to be a little bit too sensitive, because what happens if a student walks into a restaurant and a teacher is having dinner with a glass of wine? Does that mean that they should now be fired in the same way that they should be fired because there was a picture of them with a glass of wine on their Facebook page? So these are some of the challenges that everybody has to face. But ultimately, just think very carefully about how you're presenting yourself, the image and your online brand. And does it jive with the image you want to have online? It doesn't mean everything has to be unicorns and rainbows, but careful with some of the testy stuff.
Yeah. So if we see a few candidates suddenly disappear for a day or two, we'll know what they're doing.
Yeah, that's right.
On their Facebook. Okay. Thank you very much, all of you, and we'll have this posted. And thanks, folks, for joining us on the line as well, online. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.